Cleveland Browns, first up here. Obviously, the last place team in the AFC North a year ago after making the playoffs back in 2023. Their offseason, obviously, a little quiet in terms of big name additions in free agency. They went kind of bargain bin shopping. No one got over $10 million a year on any of these deals. But Kenny Pickett, they traded for from the Eagles. Malik Collins, their highest priced guy, came over from, I believe, the 49ers, defensive tackle. He's probably, your biggest impact addition of all these guys, if I had to say. Lost Jameis Winston. Their real ticker here, though, is retaining Myles Garrett and then the craziness that was their draft. Obviously, 2 quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, 2 running backs, Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, and then Mason Graham to kind of round out what should be and why I like this offseason. I mean, this defensive line should be back to kind of its 2023 form when it was good enough to pretty much in and of itself make them a playoff team. This defense is a lot of the same guys, especially on the back end, that was so good a couple years ago, but obviously had so many injuries last season. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this Browns offseason, because as much as it was nuts, as much as the draft was kind of shocking to a lot of people, I loved it. And I think given their cap situation, they couldn't have done too much better here.
I will say that I did love it. And I love their apprehension to jump the number 3 pick. And there was so much, or the number 2 pick with Shedeur Sanders. Can you even imagine the world we'd be living in right now if Shedeur was the 2 pick, the Browns completely botched it? I mean, it would be very Clevelandish. But
the crazy thing is,
this to me is great.
Would like the draft if they did that. I feel like more
people but those people need to be admitted to drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers, maybe some deep, intensive shock therapy. Because what the Browns did was smart. And obviously that ticker item with Myles Garrett, he is your identity. He's a guy that's a winner down in, down out. The question mark I have is Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett coming into the fold. I saw a picture of him wearing 2 receiver gloves playing quarterback this morning. It's concerning. The hand stuff is concerning. And I know that Pittsburgh is cold, but it's even colder in Cleveland. Okay. Jameis Winston out the door hurts to me because not only are more people watching the Cleveland Browns when Jameis Winston is playing, but they're scoring more points. And there are receivers out there who are having 200-yard games. And that don't happen unless you got a guy with some juice. Jameis had some juice. Cornelius Lucas down the list at O-line additions. I got to play with Cornelius when he was young in the league. My God, he is like an oak tree. He is so big. His arms are so long. And he's cut really high. He doesn't have to be quick. He can move efficiently because of how long he is. He had a lot of snaps in Washington and played relatively well. He has gotten better in the National Football League, so they got a good one there. There is obviously going to be a lot of sting to that defensive front. And I was proud of the Browns was sticking to their DNA, getting a defensive tackle there. I also enjoyed listening to Mason Graham go through the number selection process in the Cleveland Browns building. He was like, what 90s numbers are available? And they're like, well, 95's taken. And the guy behind him was like, who's that? I was like, hey, buddy, just keep your mouth shut when you're in there. Let the big guy Mason do the talking, all right? So I like Mason Graham. One of my favorite looking people in the draft, because you look at him and you're like, he might be the chess club champion. And then you see him play football and you're like, he is playing chess out there and he's kicking some ass. Dylan Gabriel, ton of experience in college. I know you like to lean on guys with experience rather than the traits, these superhuman traits. I want a guy with experience. Dylan Gabriel has that. So between him and Shedeur Sanders, they've got a lot of good stuff there in value in round 4 and round 5. I'll go B+. Not quite an A because I got questions about receiver gloves, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I do agree that the quarterback position, it's still one of the biggest unknowns of any team in the NFL. It could be one of the worst groups. And just like in terms of performance getting from it, you got 2 rookies, you got a first rounder who's never shown anything in Kenny Pickett, and then you have Deshaun Watson, who's probably just going to be told to stay home this year, and a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. It's like there is a good chance that it's not good at the quarterback position. But from where the Browns were, I love that they didn't just say, we're done after the Kenny Pickett move, or we're done after signing Joe Flacco or whatever. They just kept throwing shot after shot after shot. And hopefully one works, right? This gives yourself a better chance of some cream rising to the top. Now, it might not rise super high, and you still look like the fourth best team in this division. But should you catch lightning in a bottle? Should Shedeur live up to what some
Oh, man.
should Gabriel, like, should you hit? All of a sudden, you're right back in the thick of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like the floor is higher.
Yes.
The basement is higher with the guys that they drafted, because
Yes.
you can say whatever you want about Shedeur off the field, but when he's on the field, he's pretty darn calm in the pocket. And he's a guy that will probably look to have a really high completion percentage. So you know what your basement's going to be there. With Dylan Gabriel, same thing. We know from watching Oregon, the ball's out. The guy doesn't take a lot of sacks, savvy, smart player. Joe Flacco's in the game. I mean, you could get a mixed bag of anything. You could get downtown Julie Brown a bunch of times a game, or you could just get the guy who's getting it out, depending on how his knees feel when he gets out of bed.
The problem is, though, I mean, with any offseason analysis, is that they had an F grade, what was it, 4 years ago when they traded for Deshaun Watson, and they're still paying for that sin because they got $167 million they got to give to him over the next
Stay home, Deshaun.
Only under contract for the next 2 years, but then the void years after that, they unfortunately, if he's not playing at Deshaun Watson level that we saw from Houston, you are screwed. You're just screwed when that's the case.
Why did he fall off so hard?
I have called it a mental thing. First,
he got the yips.
Well, it's not even just quarterback is a confidence position. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You have
it's
to,
like pitching.
That's what we talk about. Yeah. You have to go up there every single time when you're under center. And even if you don't feel like you're the man, you have to feel like you're the man, right? Even if you aren't completely confident you're going to get it done, you have to be completely confident. There has to be an irrationality to it. And I think he had that throughout Clemson, throughout his early years in Houston. But when you walk into every room and all of a sudden you're a pariah, all of a sudden you are not looked at like you're the guy. You're looked at like, stay away from that guy. You know, your perception has completely flipped on its head. I think mentally what that does to him is immeasurable. And then obviously add into that some injuries that have played a factor. And it's just like, he's just never coming back. I just don't think he's ever coming back.